Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So, let's begin. My name is Marcus. I'm a dedicated man who believes in earning respect, taking responsibility, and supporting the people I care about. But if there's one truth life has hammered into me, it's this. Investing in ungrateful people will drain you dry. I discovered that reality the painful way, and this is how everything unraveled. When I encountered Lisa, she was a recently divorced mother with 2 young children. Tyler was 5, bursting with enthusiasm, constantly racing around with his skateboard, always bombarding everyone with endless questions. Sophia was barely 3, still unsteady on her feet, shadowing her mother everywhere she went. Their biological father, a corporate executive, had walked out during a bitter custody battle. He was supposed to be their provider, but providers sometimes choose money over family responsibilities. That left Lisa alone, struggling to manage 2 children while attempting to rebuild her shattered life. She was completely overwhelmed, and I recognized it immediately. I witnessed a woman who had endured tremendous hardship, trying to accomplish everything independently. So I intervened. Not because anyone obligated me to, not because circumstances forced my hand, but because I chose to. I wanted to provide these children with a secure foundation, to become the father figure they'd lost, to ensure they never experienced the absence of paternal guidance. For years, that's precisely what I accomplished. I maintained demanding work schedules, yet I never allowed my career to interfere with my family obligations. I guaranteed Tyler and Sophia received everything they required: quality education, fresh clothing, secure housing, and nutritious meals every evening. However, I didn't merely support them financially. I attended every school function, sitting in the front row, applauding louder than anyone else. Every birthday celebration included elaborate cakes, thoughtful presents, and joyful laughter. Every family vacation, I ensured they created memories that would endure forever. They didn't simply address me as Marcus. No, they called me Dad. And you know what? I embraced it completely. They demonstrated love toward me as though I were their biological father, and I reciprocated that affection as if they were my own blood relatives. I felt like the most fortunate man in existence. But you understand how life operates. Precisely when you believe everything is ideal, something changes. Small acts of defiance here and there, nothing catastrophic initially. I dismissed it, convincing myself it was merely a temporary phase during their development. But I was completely mistaken. I had no comprehension of what awaited me. You know, people claim that raising adolescents is challenging. They become temperamental. They test limits. They believe they possess all the answers. I anticipated that reality. What I never expected was how rapidly everything I'd constructed would be hurled back at me with contempt. Tyler reached 16 and suddenly considered himself too mature for household rules. He began returning home at unreasonable hours, completely ignoring established curfews, dismissing my guidance as though it held no value. Sophia, at 13, wasn't far behind his example. She imitated everything her brother demonstrated, rolling her eyes dramatically, completely ignoring my presence, behaving as though nothing I expressed held any significance. I'd instruct them to maintain cleanliness in our shared spaces. They'd refuse. I'd remind them about academic responsibilities. They'd shrug indifferently and walk away dismissively. I'd attempt genuine conversations with them. They'd barely acknowledge my words. When I tried establishing reasonable boundaries, they resisted aggressively. I wasn't demanding excessive compliance, simply basic courtesy. Yet to them, guidelines represented oppression. Structure meant authoritarian control. Now here's where the situation deteriorated further. Every time the children showed disrespect, I'd turn toward Lisa, expecting her intervention. But she never acted. She'd remained seated there silently, perhaps pretending to focus on her smartphone, or she'd sigh as though I were the unreasonable party. Initially, I created justifications for her behavior. Perhaps she was fatigued. Perhaps she wanted to avoid initiating another confrontation. Perhaps she was attempting to maintain household harmony. But eventually, it became obvious this wasn't passive avoidance. She was permitting them to treat me this way. That should have served as my initial warning signal. The evening everything shifted permanently remains vivid in my memory. Tyler had been staying out increasingly late. That particular night, he returned home after 1 a.m. No phone call, no text message, just strolled inside as though he owned the entire property. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't displaying anger. I simply asked him, "Where have you been?" I anticipated some guilt, maybe an apology. Instead, he simply rolled his eyes and muttered dismissively, "Relax, I'm not a little kid anymore." That's when I informed him, "You reside in my house, you follow my established rules. If you can't show respect for that, we have a serious problem." He stared directly at me and declared, "You're not my real father. Stop pretending like you have authority over me." I swear, for several seconds, I felt my entire body turn ice cold. And then, as if that wasn't devastating enough, Sophia, sweet, innocent Sophia, nodded in agreement and stated, "Yeah, you're just some random guy Mom decided to marry." I turned toward Lisa, waiting for her to respond, to correct their behavior, to inform them they were completely out of line. She remained silent. She simply stood there. No anger, no disappointment, absolutely nothing. That moment, that precise moment, something fundamental inside me shattered completely. You'd assume that after everything I'd accomplished for them, after all the years I'd invested raising them, there would be some limit to the disrespect I'd tolerate. But apparently, there wasn't, because just a few days later, the identical situation repeated itself. This time, it wasn't merely Tyler being insolent or Sophia supporting him. This time, Lisa joined their rebellion. It began over something trivial. Sophia had created a disaster in our kitchen. Dishes stacked carelessly in the sink, crumbs scattered across every counter surface, sticky juice spilled across the floor. I told her calmly to clean up her mess, basic personal responsibility. But instead of complying, she simply stared at me defiantly and said, "Why don't you handle it? It's your house, isn't it?" That comment stung deeply, but before I could even formulate a response, Tyler interjected, "Why are you constantly trying to control us? You're not even our biological father." Then came Lisa's voice, soft and casual, as though what she was about to say wouldn't haunt me permanently. "They make a valid point, Marcus. Maybe ease up." She didn't even look up from her phone, didn't even possess the basic decency to make eye contact with me. I cannot adequately explain what occurred within me during that moment. It wasn't simply anger. It wasn't merely emotional pain. It was absolute clarity. That was it. That was the precise moment I understood I was completely finished. That night, I sat alone in complete darkness, just reflecting. Reflecting on all the years I had invested caring for those children. Reflecting on all the sacrifices I had willingly made. Reflecting on how, despite everything I'd given, I meant nothing to them. And if I truly meant nothing to them, then perhaps it was time I began acting accordingly. So I did something I should have implemented much earlier. I stopped everything. I stopped giving endlessly. I stopped caring about their problems. I stopped trying to maintain relationships with them. No more transportation to school. If they wanted to arrive, they could figure out their own solutions. No more weekly allowances. I wasn't their personal bank account. No more protective intervention when they encountered difficulties. They could handle consequences independently. No more stepping in to solve their problems. No more parental advice. No more assistance with anything. No more fatherly concern or guidance. They didn't want me functioning as their father? Perfect. They could experience life without one completely. I'll be honest with you. It caused more pain than I can adequately express. But deep within, I knew it represented the only appropriate response. Have you ever noticed how certain people don't appreciate what they possess until it's permanently gone? How they assume they can treat you like garbage and you'll continue accepting it? That perfectly described Tyler, Sophia, and Lisa. When I stopped acting like their father, they initially thought it was some kind of joke. They laughed dismissively. Tyler and Sophia behaved as though my decision held no importance. Great. Now we don't have to deal with him constantly bossing us around. Mom's got our backs. We don't need him anyway. I overheard that conversation one afternoon. For a while, they didn't feel any negative impact because Lisa made sure to compensate for my absence. She funded their recreational shopping expeditions, ensured their weekends remained filled with expensive restaurant visits and unnecessary purchases. She maintained their comfort, preserved their arrogance, and continued reinforcing the notion that they didn't require me. They mocked me behind my back, smirking whenever I walked past, making sarcastic little remarks as though I were invisible. But I remained quiet because I understood something they didn't. Lisa wasn't independently wealthy, and I had been the one maintaining this family's financial stability. So I waited patiently. Then it began happening. Initially, it was minor inconveniences. The weekend shopping sprees resulted in fewer bags returning home. The fast food excursions became less frequent. The designer clothing purchases, suddenly their wardrobes weren't overflowing with new items anymore. Then circumstances worsened significantly. School tuition payments were due, and Lisa began displaying visible anxiety. Tyler got into trouble at school. Normally, I'd intervene, handle the situation, communicate with the principal. Not this time. Sophia's smartphone broke. Usually, I'd replace it immediately without hesitation. Not this time. And worst of all, no more ride-sharing services. They actually had to do something they never imagined they'd experience: ride public transportation. I remember the first morning Tyler missed his usual ride because he assumed someone would provide transportation. When he realized nobody was coming, he had to sprint 4 blocks just to catch the city bus. Sophia complained to Lisa about the inconvenience, asking, "Why can't you just arrange another ride for us?" And you know what Lisa responded? "Because I don't have the money for that right now." The moment I heard that statement, I smiled, because I knew reality had finally arrived. It took approximately 1 month before Lisa finally reached her breaking point. One evening, I returned from work to find her waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed defensively, face flushed red, already prepared for confrontation. "You're behaving like a damn child, Marcus. What kind of man punishes his own family simply because his feelings got hurt? You're neglecting your responsibilities." I just stood there observing her because there it was, that specific word. Responsibilities. Not love, not family, not respect. No, I was merely a responsibility, a financial provider. So I asked her directly and plainly, "Why do you never defend me? Why do you consistently allow them to speak to me with such disrespect?" That's when she revealed her true feelings. She sneered contemptuously and declared, "Because I agree with them, Marcus. You were never truly their father." I felt something inside me turn to ice. She continued her verbal assault. "I told them not to let you control them. I raised them alone before you arrived, and I can do it again." I should have felt angry, maybe even heartbroken. But you know what I experienced? Relief. Because finally, she had spoken the truth aloud. Finally, I understood the complete reality. I was never their father, never her genuine partner, just a walking paycheck, a convenience. Tyler and Sophia stood in the hallway, watching with arms crossed, displaying smug expressions on their faces. This is it. This is who they really are, I thought. I nodded silently, turned around, and walked away. Not because I was weak, but because I was completely done. I've always believed that when people show you who they truly are, you should believe them. Now I had no choice but to accept the truth. The children immediately became more aggressive since I stopped funding their lifestyle. The situation escalated dramatically in the following days. My personal belongings started disappearing mysteriously. My work documents, carefully organized on my desk, were suddenly missing one morning when I needed them urgently. My car, parked securely in our driveway, was vandalized overnight, deep scratches running along the passenger side. Initially, I didn't want to believe they were capable of such destructive behavior. But then, one evening, I returned home to discover my bedroom ransacked, my clothing torn to pieces and scattered across the floor. That's when I reviewed the security camera footage, and there they were, Tyler and Sophia, laughing as they destroyed my possessions. For weeks, I maintained the pretense. I allowed them to believe they had won. I remained quiet, distant, seemingly unaffected, even as they intensified their efforts to provoke me. But behind the scenes, I was documenting everything meticulously. I recorded their threats, preserved every hostile text message, photographed all my damaged belongings, and ensured I possessed irrefutable evidence of the toxic environment I'd been enduring. I began quietly implementing my exit strategy. I consulted with an attorney, explained the entire situation, and provided all the evidence I had collected: the threats, the property destruction, the hostile living conditions. The lawyer assured me I had a strong case for divorce, and given the circumstances, I could request a restraining order if necessary. The legal process wasn't immediate. It required time, weeks of legal consultations, paperwork preparation, and formal documentation. I filed official police reports regarding the damage to my belongings, and although the authorities weren't going to raid the house over some destroyed items, the documented history of threats helped strengthen my legal position. Then one morning, after everything had been processed, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter before departing for work. Inside, Lisa discovered the divorce papers. Initially, I imagined she thought I was bluffing, but her subsequent phone calls revealed she'd found the additional documents. Attached to the divorce papers were copies of my police reports, documentation of threats, and evidence of property damage. My attorney had advised, including this information, to preemptively protect myself from any false accusations she might attempt. I didn't answer her calls. I had already relocated, taking only belongings I valued. The joint bank accounts were closed. Any money she assumed she could access was gone. Everything was legally in my name, and I had ensured she had no legal claim over any of it. Now she was truly on her own. When Lisa's calls went unanswered, the text messages began flooding in. Initially, they were filled with rage and blame. "You're such a coward, Marcus. You ran away the moment things became challenging. You were never a real man. A real father doesn't abandon his family. I don't need you. I can take care of my kids perfectly fine without you." It was almost laughable. This was the same woman who had encouraged those same children to rebel against me, to treat me like an unwanted outsider in my own home. And now she was pretending as though I had abandoned them, when in reality, they had discarded me first. I didn't bother responding. There was nothing remaining to say. Weeks passed, then months. The messages from Lisa decreased in frequency, probably because reality had finally set in. She was actually alone now. No more financial security blanket. No more easy money. She had always boasted about being capable of handling everything independently, but I knew the truth. She had become accustomed to the lifestyle I provided, and without me, survival wasn't so simple anymore. Then, unexpectedly, I received different messages. This time, they originated from the children. The first message was straightforward. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't reply. A few days later, another message arrived. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but things aren't going well right now." Still, I didn't respond. A few days later, Sophia reached out. "Hey Marcus, I just wanted to say that I hope you're doing okay." I stared at my screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, but I didn't type anything. Over the next few weeks, the messages continued arriving, and gradually the tone shifted. At first it was casual, a weak attempt to break the ice. But then, genuine regret started emerging. "I just wanted to apologize for everything. We should have treated you better. Things have been difficult since you left. Mom isn't handling the situation well." And finally, the message that almost made me laugh. "I miss you." I let the messages remain there, unread. I didn't respond. I didn't acknowledge them, because I was free. And if there's one lesson I've learned from this entire experience, never allow people to take you for granted. Never beg for respect. Never waste your energy trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to recognize it. And most importantly, when you realize you're being used, walk away immediately. Because some people only realize your value once they've lost you permanently. And by then, it's too damn late. Walking away from Lisa and the children was the most difficult decision I ever made. Not because I still wanted them in my life, but because for so long I had convinced myself that I needed them, that being a good man meant enduring disrespect, that love meant sacrificing your dignity. But I was wrong. A man who values himself doesn't remain where he's not appreciated. Now I live for myself. I focus on my career, my goals, my happiness. I spend time with people who actually respect me. I've reconnected with old friends. I've traveled. And I've started new hobbies that I never had time for previously. I don't wake up every morning wondering what drama awaits me. I wake up free. And that, my friends, is how I reclaimed my life. Moral of the story: never let people treat you like an ATM. Never beg for respect. And most importantly, they only realize your worth once you're gone. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments, and while you're at it, like and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today.